What if the public story surrounding Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, former actress, and a figure who drew global attention through her connection to the British royal family, contains inconsistencies that do not fully align when examined closely? Across interviews, memoir-style accounts, and professionally produced documentaries, a consistent version of her life has been presented to the public. However, some commentators and online researchers claim that certain archived print materials and industry records appear to raise questions about the timeline that has long been accepted, particularly her widely reported birth date of August 4th, 1981. These claims suggest that this detail may be part of a carefully shaped public identity that supported her rise within the entertainment industry. One of the earliest points often referenced comes from archived magazine material from the 1990s. In a 1997 issue of a teen-focused publication, a young, aspiring actress listed as Meghan Markle appeared in an editorial feature in Los Angeles. According to copies of that print issue, her age was listed in a way that some observers say does not align neatly with the currently accepted birth year. When this information is examined mathematically, it leads to conflicting interpretations. If the listed age at that time is taken at face value, it would suggest a birth year earlier than 1981. This has fueled ongoing debate among those who study celebrity timelines and archived media records. On the other hand, official biographies continue to maintain the 1981 date, which would place her at a much younger age during the period in question. The gap between these two interpretations is at the center of the discussion. Supporters of the official record argue that magazine listings can contain errors or informal reporting practices, especially in entertainment features involving young talent. Critics, however, point to the publication's national reach and editorial standards, suggesting that such discrepancies would be unlikely to go unnoticed or uncorrected at the time. Photographs from that era are also frequently analyzed by those engaged in this debate, with different interpretations offered about age, appearance, and professional stage of life. This early inconsistency is often cited as the starting point for broader questions about how public identities are formed and maintained in the entertainment industry, and whether biographical details can sometimes shift over time as careers evolve and visibility increases. Another layer of discussion centers around how age and identity function within Hollywood casting culture, particularly during the early 2000s. In a highly competitive industry, age has often been viewed as a critical factor in determining the types of roles available to actresses, especially those still trying to establish themselves. Some commentators argue that this environment created strong incentives for performers to present themselves in ways that aligned with casting expectations. Within this context, attention has been drawn to public-facing industry profiles, including online databases that track film and television credits. Over time, it has been claimed by some industry observers that Meghan Markle's listed birth year appeared to shift from an earlier date to the currently accepted 1981. These claims suggest that such a change would have had practical implications in an industry where even a few years can significantly affect casting opportunities and perceived career stage. Around the period when she was being considered for major television roles, including her eventual breakthrough in a popular legal drama series, some argue that maintaining a younger public age would have been professionally advantageous. Others counter that online databases are frequently edited, sometimes by third parties or based on updated information from public relations sources, and therefore cannot be treated as definitive historical records. The debate also extends into personal anecdotes that have been shared in interviews. One frequently discussed example involves a story about working at a frozen yogurt shop during her teenage years and encountering a well-known actress featured in a commercial at the time. Critics of the timeline point to advertising release dates and attempt to align them with her stated age in that story, suggesting inconsistencies. Supporters argue that memory-based anecdotes are often imprecise and can shift slightly in retelling without indicating intentional misrepresentation. As a result, this portion of the discussion remains divided between those who see a pattern of chronological inconsistencies and those who view it as a combination of misremembered details, media editing, and the natural distortions that occur in long public careers. Further scrutiny is often directed toward her academic and early adult timeline, particularly her time at university. Meghan Markle graduated from Northwestern University in 2003 with degrees in theater and international studies. On paper, this graduation date is consistent with the commonly accepted birth year of 1981. However, some independent researchers have examined university-era photographs in social circles in an attempt to assess whether the age alignment within those environments appears consistent. Certain claims suggest that many individuals within her reported social and extracurricular circles were born in the early to mid-1970s, leading to speculation about whether age proximity within those groups aligns with the official timeline. Others argue that university environments often include a wide range of ages due to transfers, non-traditional students, and varied academic paths, making such comparisons unreliable as evidence. There have also been anecdotal reports attributed to unnamed classmates suggesting that she may have appeared older than her documented age during that period. However, these claims remain unverified and are often based on retrospective memory, which can be influenced by time and perception. Family members have also been drawn into the broader narrative surrounding her public history. In various public statements and interviews, differing accounts have emerged regarding childhood timelines and family relationships. Some interpretations of these statements suggest alternative birth year estimates, while others argue that family disputes and personal conflicts can distort factual recollection, especially when public attention intensifies those disagreements. As a result, this segment of the discussion remains highly contested, with no consensus between official records, personal testimonies, and retrospective interpretations of past events. Additional attention has been given to official documentation produced after her marriage into the British royal family. When the birth of her son Archie was announced in 2019, public records reflected standard naming conventions initially associated with her legal identity. However, subsequent updates to certain official documents replaced her personal name with her royal title. Observers noted that this change differed from typical naming practices seen in comparable royal birth records, leading to debate about administrative consistency and documentation standards within royal institutions. Some argue that such modifications reflect established royal protocols, while others interpret them as unusual alterations that complicate public record tracing. Further speculation has emerged around timing discrepancies in publicly released photographs associated with the birth announcement. Some metadata interpretations suggest minor differences between recorded timestamps and official statements. While official explanations often attribute such inconsistencies to technical or communication-related delays, critics interpret them as part of a broader pattern of tightly managed public messaging. Legal commentary has also entered the discussion through references to published biographies and investigative works. Some authors have raised questions about the willingness of public figures to engage in legal proceedings when disputed claims arise. In these interpretations, the decision not to pursue certain defamation cases is viewed by some as strategic, while others argue it may reflect a desire to avoid prolonged legal exposure or public attention rather than an implication of truth or falsehood. Overall, this section of the narrative highlights the tension between public documentation, media reporting, and the interpretation of administrative changes in high-profile royal contexts. At the center of the broader debate is a fundamental question about identity, public record accuracy, and how personal narratives evolve under intense global scrutiny. Some commentators argue that discrepancies across archive materials, public anecdotes, and institutional records suggest the possibility of a revised or strategically managed public biography. Others strongly dispute this interpretation, emphasizing the reliability of official documents and warning against drawing conclusions from fragmented or context-dependent evidence. In recent years, renewed attention from biographers, analysts, and online investigators has continued to fuel discussion around historical records, including early employment history, tax filings, and immigration-related documentation. However, much of this material remains private or unverified in the public domain, leaving significant gaps in any attempt to construct a definitive timeline outside of official biographies. The broader impact of these debates extends beyond one individual. They reflect the intersection of celebrity culture, media construction, and institutional documentation systems that operate on very different principles. In entertainment industries, identity can be flexible and shaped for audience appeal, while in governmental and constitutional systems, records are intended to remain fixed and legally binding. When those two worlds overlap, contradictions and disputes can emerge in how a public figure is perceived. Ultimately, the discussion continues without formal resolution. Official records maintain one version of events, while critics and independent researchers continue to question inconsistencies they believe exist within the public narrative. Until definitive primary documentation is made publicly available and universally verified, the topic remains open to interpretation, shaped as much by perception and narrative framing as by documented fact.